BookTube. We're continuing my library tour for 2022, all the books that I currently have in my possession. And we've started in the little book room here as opposed to the rest of Hyde Cottage. These are supposed to be heavily vetted books, books that are slower to move out of the collection, but I've been finding a lot of stuff in this room that needs to be rearranged, that needs to be moved out of this room, needs to be maybe moved out of my collection just entirely. So this is good. Library tours are good. They're very helpful for putting your hands physically on every single book that you have. It's very good. So we're starting with this next shelf. I think it's the last one that I can do before I have to move the camera and take a seat. And we'll do the Transverse Books first, starting with this thing. This is a UK trade paperback of Peter Ackroyd's Volume 2 of his History of England. Peter Ackroyd just recently finished up a multi-volume History of England, and Volume 2 was The Tudors. And I found a UK trade paperback of that volume. I reviewed, I think, one of these volumes for, I think, the Boston Globe. I've read the whole series. I thought it was really good, a little bit antiquated, a little bit anachronistic as an idea, just an idea to do, a little bit Whiggish, in other words. But I really liked the series, and I thought it got stronger as it approached the present day, as it approached Ackroyd's own life. Then we have a book by Connor Fitzgerald called The Dogs of Rome. This is a murder mystery, apt for March Mystery Madness, set in relatively contemporary Rome. I enjoyed it. I read it, and then I reread it when somebody sent it to me, but there's no reason conceivable why it's in this room. Okay, then we have something that I think I showed you before. Do I have a quick grab of this thing? This is The Golden Age of the American Essay, 1945 to 1970, edited by Philip Lope. This is one of the 3 volumes in his trilogy about American essays. And I showed you, I think we've seen 1 volume of this so far, maybe 2. And this is the 3rd. I should be able to tell, shouldn't I, since I'm doing a library tour and I just praised it for its... I don't think we've seen a 3rd volume. We saw the first one. The first one came out in a hardcover. And the other 2 volumes in this trilogy came out in paperback, which is going to be maddening to a kind of reader out there. I imagine a great number of readers out there. But Lope is fantastic. He's a great picker for these things, a great editor for these things. We're going to keep going with the Transwise books before we get to the actual books. I mean, they're all actual books, but the ones that are actually on the bookcase, on the shelf normally. These are all stacked sideways. This is a slim thing. This is Venice Observed by Mary McCarthy. This is an old Harcourt book. Her book on Venice, which she knew perfectly well when she took this job, that every last word had been said on Venice, that you couldn't say anything original about the city. But she took the job anyway and managed to do it. Managed to write an indispensable guide to Venice, an indispensable reflection on Venice. Okay, then we have a little, look at this, little Hesperus trade paperback of Simonetta Perkins by L.P. Hartley. The great L.P. Hartley, a great author who's largely forgotten today. This is, again, a Venice book, and very, very Jamesian type of thing, a very Thomas Mann type of thing, where the main character is a young woman who goes to Venice and falls erotically in love with a man. And the thing that makes it Jamesian and Mann-esque is that the female character is an obvious erotic stand-in for the author himself. It doesn't take much to see that, and if that's what these authors had to do to skirt the censors of their own day and maybe even write out some of the intricacies of their own passions without actually examining their own heart, I'm okay with that, provided it makes a really good novel. And this is a novella. It's a tiny little thing, but it really is good. Where are we going to put these things? We're still doing Transverse books here. Oh, okay. This is by Anna Quinlan. She's an author I don't usually like all that much, but this is a very slim and beautiful dog book. Good Dog, Stay. There's a lot in here about her life with dogs, and as you might be able to tell from that title, there's also a bit in here about the useless urge for dogs to stay, for dogs to stick around, for them to live longer. They're very short-lived species. And, you know, if you hit 15 years, you're really lucky. If you hit any longer than that, you're in blessed, blessed territory. But even at the end, we watch them for their whole life. We get them usually as helpless little babies, and we watch them grow up through their terrible twos, into their settled middle age, and then into old age, and finally into old age and decrepitude, where their senses are failing and they're frightened of their own weakness. We watch that whole process, and the aspects of that whole process are caught wonderfully in the stories in this book. I am hopefully a long way off from that. My little bean is over on the bed, basking in the sun. She is she is 5 years old in this month, so she's in the prime of her life. Always willing to go for a walk, always able to scoot around and jump up everywhere. And as usual, the dog owners out there will know this, the dog people. As usual, when I'm in this period with a dog, this is the first time in a very long time where I've had only one dog. But usually when I've had multiple dogs, they've all been the same age. Many times they've been litter mates, so they've been literally the same age. And as usual, when I'm in this position where, you know, the dog is young and in the prime of health and shiny, bright, glossy eyes, I am perfectly aware of the fact that I am forgetting what's coming. I'm just not thinking about it at all. But anyway, the Good Dog Stay is one of the rare dog books that I would recommend. Most of them are not good, but this one is. Then we have an old curiosity from the Brattle Bookshop. This is the Bullfinch Front, referring to 1899. Yes, it's a collection, a bound collection of addresses before the Massachusetts legislature about preserving and restoring bullfinch architecture in Boston. No one would ever print this as a book, this kind of thing, as a book anymore. And the sentiments put forward to the Massachusetts State House would not be worthy of being printed anymore. But you had some genuine intellects coming here. And this is the sort of curiosity that you would only find at the Brattle Bookshop. So I grabbed it, of course. And now we're on to the normal shelf of books. So we'll start with this one. We've seen this already in another edition. This is Peter Kemp's The Oxford Dictionary of Literary Quotations. I found this one. This is a newer version, an updated version of the one that we've already seen, that I'm sure I can't just grab for comparison's sake. No, I have no idea where it is. But I saw this and grabbed it, of course, because even though I was a little bit cautious about what the updates would be, the closer you get to the 21st century, the more suspect any updated version of any work of reference is, you know, because you already know, you know as well as I do, that it could very well be that the closer you get to current year, the more say Twitter is going to have in what the update is. And so you could easily be looking at a volume that has dumped a lot of good stuff to import a lot of garbage. I've gone through this a bit, especially in comparison with my other volume, because I'd like to have only one volume. I don't really want two. And I haven't noticed a whole lot of that, so I'm hopeful. Okay, then we have another little book tucked in here. This is Reckoning by Rusty Barnes. A little novel that with a lamentable title. There should be a complete moratorium on the word reckoning as a book title. It should absolutely never happen. You propose it to a publisher, they should say, well, we like the book, we'll take it, we're happy to pay you a little money, but you cannot use that title. But it's a really good story. It's a terrific sort of Southern noir story about a boy who finds an unconscious woman out in the wild and has to figure out what he and his friends need to figure out what to do about that and about her and with her. And it pulls you in right from the beginning. It's an absolutely involving novel. Okay, then we have 2 books in a row here. This is God by Jack Miles. It's called God, a Biography, in which the author, who knows better, he knows perfectly well the gimmick that he's playing here. He decides to take the Old Testament as a straightforward chronological literary chronicle of the development of a character. The character being God. The Old Testament is certainly not that, but Jack Miles tries the experiment of doing that to follow what we can know about this character and whether or not this character has changed, and it's fantastic. Just fantastic, fantastic book. Almost every page in mine has a highlight or an underlining of some kind or other. And then he did a follow-up, Christ, a crisis in the life of God, where he basically does the same thing for the New Testament. And he did a third book called God in the Quran that I thought was far, far less effective. I had it for a long time with these first two. And then I realized I was never going to, I reviewed it, but I realized I was never going to reread it. So I got rid of it. Then we have a relatively new edition. This is The Making of a Sonnet. It's a Norton anthology edited by Edward Hirsch and Evan Boland, the late great poet. And it's a collection of sonnets from antiquity to the present day. A fantastic poetry anthology that I'm really glad I have, although to be a broken record, certainly all the poetry anthologies should be together, right? We started off way over there with the Oxford Book of English Verse, the Helen Gardner edition. We recently saw World Poetry. Now we have The Making of the Sonnet, and I'm sure there are plenty of other poetry anthologies in here. Then we have a trade paperback. Okay, this is a modern library trade paperback of A Cab at the Door and Midnight Oil, which are memoirs by V.S. Pritchett. Very, very good memoirs by V.S. Pritchett. What this is doing here, I have no idea. This should not be here. I have a biography bookcase that is supposed to have all the biographies in it, with maybe a couple of exceptions that would be in here for very sentimental reasons. This is not one of those. So, well, that's partly what this library tour will be doing. I will be clearing up this room. It'd be a great fun. We have a few more miscellaneous bookcases to go. Then we start into subject matters. I don't know how I'm going to deal with those, because those are going to make for tedious viewing, I would think. But we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. This next one is a Brattle find from, I think, last year. This is by Robert Graves and Joshua Podro, and it's the Nazarene Gospel Restored, which is a walkthrough and a comment on the New Testament, and also a running commentary on New Testament criticism. An amazing book. Good Lord. I have spent so much time with this book since I found it at the Brattle. It's just exactly up my alley when it comes to the type of thing that I like to read on a very regular basis. Then we have an old natural history book. This is Alive in the Wild, edited by Victor Callahan, who we've already seen in this library tour, and with drawings by Robert Canny. Alive in the Wild. So we have a photo on the cover, but the reason why I got it is because it's mostly just beautiful. The artwork on the inside is mostly beautiful illustrations. There's a bear raiding some honey. There are some black-footed ferrets out in the wild. And this is just stories of the natural world. There's some peccaries, close relative of the pig. So you get introduced to the animal, you get a little bit of their natural history, you get some of Callahan's favorite stories about them, which is also present in his North American Wildlife, which I think we've already seen. Just a terrific thing to just idle away an hour on. The pictures really help. Okay, then we have another work of natural history. This one does not have any illustrations. It has photos instead, black and white photos, even though this is from a long time ago. This is from 1946. This is Edwin Way Teale, the great natural history writer Edwin Way Teale, and this is The Lost Woods. And it, as the title shows you, and the cover shows you, it's full of black and white photos. I love Edwin Way Teale. I think he's fantastic. Do you want to know what that creature is? What is that? It is an insect cat. Form and markings of the rear of this saddleback caterpillar moving away over the surface of a wild cherry leaf give it the appearance of some fantastic Alice in Wonderland cat. So that is a beetle of some kind. I would read Edwin Way Teale on anything. I am patiently waiting at the Brattle Bookshop. Edwin Way Teale is most famous for a series of books that he did where he follows the 4 seasons across America. So summer, winter, fall, spring, that sort of thing. And I am waiting patiently to find all 4 of those books with dust jackets at the Brattle. I know that it will happen. They're moldering away in attics and basements right now as we speak in many, many houses in the Northeast. I know that it will happen, and I'm just waiting patiently to find them. I don't have those books at all now. The closest that I come is a trade paperback of A Walk Through the Seasons, which I think we've already seen in this room, which is an abridgment of those 4 mushed into one book. But I want all 4 volumes. I see them all the time, often in crappy condition with no dust jacket. I don't want that. I want them all. I also would really like, he did a memoir called Dune Boy that is, I've only ever seen it as a mass market paperback, but I know that it was issued as a hardcover with a dust jacket. So sooner or later it will happen. And then finally we'll end up here with the Peterson's Guide to Wildlife and Birds, all that sort of thing. It will be well familiar to you. This one came in the mail. Do I have a pub sheet for this thing? No, I don't. But it's a fairly recent publication. Surely I can know that, right? 2019. I got it in 2019 from the publicist. So I didn't go out and buy this. I might have been tempted to. Anyway, this is an elaborate, oversized hardcover Peterson reference guide to sparrows. There we have an example of a sparrow on the cover there. There we have a few more examples. This one being by far the most common kind that you would know, in the Northeast anyway. I have a deep fascination with sparrows. I have a little group of them myself that I've become intimately familiar with over the years, to the point where I feed them so regularly that I can now stand there and watch them eat, and they'll come right up and eat. They know to ignore me, which is great. It's a really good, I really want to feed them. I don't really want to feed robins, or especially starlings. They can lump it. They can find their own sources of food. I'm perversely attached to this group of sparrows, so I want to feed them. I don't want their food poached by big brawling crowds of bigger birds. And the bigger birds, the mourning doves especially, but also the robins and even the starlings, are afraid to come near the food if I stand there. But my sparrows are not. They know me well enough to know that. The one thing that I haven't yet got them to do is come right up to me. In order to do that, I would have to put a pillow out on the porch, sit on that pillow with my charged laptop on top of me, and a bag of bits and pieces of crackers or bread or food or whatnot right next to me that I'm sort of doling out right beside me. I'd be willing to bet that in very little time they would hop up on me, they would take food from my hand, they would hop up on the top of my laptop. I'd be willing to bet that they would do that. The laptop, for those of you who are wondering why I would include that, is because I'm not going to waste writing time just sitting there. but if I were to go out there and work, in the beauty of the afternoon, with food next to me, I feel certain that I could acclimate them to just hopping all over me. They're largely fearless as it is. I don't think it would take very long. The only reason I haven't done that is because it would mean working without the being, since if they're not going to come anywhere near her, and she might, if they did, she might consider killing one of them. She doesn't really. I mean, she was absolutely bred and made to hunt little rodents. She's killed well upwards of 40 mice here in Hyde Cottage. She has killed a chipmunk when we were out on a walk, and it happened so fast that I couldn't even stop her. She took a big Frida-sized gulp out of the fur on a squirrel's tail. There's a squirrel somewhere in the woods there that has a big notch in his tail. And just the other night, we were walking on the sidewalk, and she suddenly started quartering on a parked car, just going back and forth like that. When a terrier or a house cat, a mouser cat that isn't lazy, when they know that a target animal is present, they will start to do that. Rapid oscillations between the places where the creature is. Rapid oscillations, but irregular oscillations. They're designed to flush the creature out from under its cover. Frida does that without any thought at all. She does it completely instinctively. She does it really, really well. And she started to do that on a parked car. And I thought, what, is there a mouse under there? Or God forbid, a rat? A rat would be almost her size. But it succeeded. It always succeeds. She always succeeds. She's so good at it. A few seconds later, she managed to flush the thing out from under the car, and it was a vole. It was a vole. Well, that big. I thought they lived only near water. This was on a street, under a parked car. So maybe they don't live only near water. I keep meaning to do a YouTube rabbit hole about voles and find out how versatile I'm sure they are. But she wanted to do that. That was close enough. It isn't just something that has to be mouse-sized that will do it for her. It's anything that's within a certain range. And a sparrow is certainly within a certain range. So I would worry about having her out there to acclimate them. All of which was a huge digression on this last book. Sparrows. By the Peterson guide, the reference guide. This is not a field guide, a little thing that you would take out in the field to identify sparrows. So that's it. That is this shelf. A usual weird variety of things here. I'm going to wrap this up for now, and we will continue. Tomorrow will have to be done on a chair. I will have to be sitting down because I'm not going to stoop out of the camera for every video. But I'll see you then. Either way, thank you, BookTube.